Welcome to episode 51 of the Making Geeks podcast. We are the podcast for makers, dads, and geeks. And we have my fabulous co-host here today, Mr. Josh Price.
I'm not a guest this week?
No, not a guest this week.
All right.
we solidified your spot again. Mr. Mark O'Keefe.
What's going on?
Mr. Wes Swain.
Good evening, guys.
And I am Sean Jolliker. So happy post 1 year anniversary.
Yay. Woo. I'm beyond the honeymoon phase now.
Yep. That was a fun time last week.
Guys. Yeah, that was a lot of fun last week.
That was a good time.
I almost wanted to just kind of sit back and watch the chat, because that seemed to be where, all the fun was really happening.
Yeah, we had a pretty diverse group of people in there. It was really good. People acting crazy, people asking legit questions. That was fun.
It's kind of nice thing that, there is actually people that watch and pay attention to the show, because we don't get a whole lot of other interaction otherwise sometimes.
It's true.
I think that's the thing with radio, or like kind of the format that we have. Unless you really hate something, you don't really hear back from a lot of people.
Yeah, that is true. Because the only stats that we get are the stats that are generated by our RSS feed that then kind of feed into some other systems. And we don't even really have a way to find out, who those people actually are. We don't have a way to really track those demographics yet, as far as I know. So at some point, we might have to put out a survey or something to try to get a little bit more information about what our audience really looks like. Might be something to look into for the future. Find out how the big boys do it.
Bunch of hot women.
Well, I would assume.
Yeah.
Nothing but girls. Love the show.
Yep. Until they see the YouTube feed. So what have you guys been up to this week?
I got to make stuff.
That sounds fun. What you making?
Yeah, I got to make stuff in someone else's shop. It was great. So I made an organizing system for that cabinet there. I talked about it last week. So I got a video I just finished editing before we started recording. But yeah, I made a little shelf kind of, organizing deal in this one cabinet that I have above my bed in the RV that was just riddled with crap laying all over the place. So I got to go to a real live wood shop with real live tools. I got to use Festool tools for the first time.
Ooh.
Do you feel kind of different now?
How was that?
Dude, I do. Like, my crust has been uppered. They were, for the novice, they were just out. I'm like, ooh, that's a Festool. But a Festool doesn't have like a plug, like everybody else has a plug. There's a universal, like a couple of universal plugs, like that go from the wall into the tool, rather than from the tool into the wall.
I've seen
so
those.
You can just change them out really quick, which is kind of cool.
Actually, saw some guy. There's a setup to do that to all your other tools.
Marius Hornberger did a whole video on it.
Sure did. But yeah, I went to go use. What was I going to use? I think I was going to use a track saw. So it's the first time I ever used a track saw, which was awesome, like a real legit one, not the crap one I bought in Atlanta. But this Festool track saw, and it had a different plug than the plug that was plugged into the dust extractor, because it has a thing like when you turn the tool on, that like current drop will automatically kick on the dust extractor, and so the vacuum will just start. But it wasn't the same plug, so I went to go use it, and I couldn't figure out how to use it. So I had to take that plug off, because that was for the sander and the domino, and not for the track saw. And so I had to look all around this guy's shop, and I finally found it. But then on the track had a little burr, like in the track, a little like where the metal was dimpled, and when you start at the bottom, it would catch. And so I thought there was some type of lock, and so I just stood there like an idiot, like, what is wrong with this thing? Like, I can't figure this out. Like, I should be smarter than this. And I think it took me probably 25 minutes. Oh, and then it has a depth stop. I'm like, this is 1/2 inch plywood, so I set it to 1/2 inch. And when I finally figured out the burr and the plug and whatever, and I made a cut, it just like scored the top. I'm like, what in the hell is wrong with this thing? But I guess that 1/2 inch doesn't take into account like the actual track. I don't know. I had to drop it way lower. But in that video, you'll see me fumbling around with this stinking track saw, and then I finally got to cut, and it cut amazing. It cut straight. It cut clean. It was easy. It was cool. But if you've never used a Festool product, then yeah, there's a bit of a learning curve. It's a little different than your normal Home Depot tools.
Well, I spent most of the week relocating a shed that I have on the side of my house. The shed's been up for about 8 years, and I have probably about 25 to 30 feet of clearance on the side of my house, but I was never able to make use of the whole space because the shed, the chimney sticks out like a good 8 or 10 inches, so I was never able to push the shed all the way back. So I decided to disassemble it, and it's only an aluminum shed, so I cut it to kind of fit the back corner and kind of have it wrap around the chimney. And then now I can actually make use of that entire space now for better wood storage and everything else. So I'm trying to get organized this summer before I start, rolling out the 5 or 6 projects I'm hoping to get done. And then I released a video this week of my kids playing around and making these little things called soda can robots. We shot the video about 4 weeks ago, but I just have the time now to edit it and finally get it out for release.
I saw the shed thing you're doing on your Instagram, and that's quite a bit of space that you have free back there now.
It is, and I didn't even realize how much it was until I started moving the shed. There's a good, almost 4x4 space that I wasn't able to use for 8 years. That was just vacant back there because I couldn't push the shed back any farther. And I think it's only now that I kind of felt confident enough to actually take that thing apart and make it fit to where I wanted. So that's just about done now.
I guess maybe my scale is off, but when I saw that space in the back, like you were talking, whenever you enclose the top part, and then you're saying you were going to get kind of another shed to enclose the rest of it, the piece that was previously covered, I was like, that's an entire shop. I was like, maybe it's just that my RV shop is so super tiny that looks big. It's literally like a hallway beside your house.
I mean, I thought about it too, and I mean, there's not enough space for a table saw, but there would be enough space for a chop saw and maybe a small workbench if I had power over there. The only problem on that side would be that the echo would almost be unbearable.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. Would that free up some of the space in your current patio shop?
That's what I'm hoping.
For other things?
I have a lot of wood storage where all my tools currently are, and I want to try to get all that moved to the other side of the house, and that'll make things a lot nicer. And I have company coming over for my daughter's birthday tomorrow, and now it's nice that I could actually move all my tools because they're on wheels over there without too much of a problem and open up my patio. How about you, Wes? What have you been up to?
I've been dinking around a little bit with some Adafruit LEDs for Bobby Duke's sword project I'm working on with him. We had we got like 2 meters worth of LED strips that were spaced. The LEDs were spaced an inch apart from each other on the strip, and we determined that was probably a little bit too far for his requirements or his use. Because like the diffusing piece we have that's going to go over it, it's not going to be terribly far away, so it won't like leave a lot of space for the light to kind of distribute. So we got one that was twice as dense, so every half inch there's another LED, which it's kind of amazing that I'm actually able to power 120 bright LEDs with 3 AA batteries.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty
amazing.
Awesome. Yeah. And they're super bright, like so bright if you look at them and look away, you'll see like the spots. We've got to do some testing to see how long they'll actually last on the battery pack to see if that's sufficient for his needs. Because space is kind of at a premium in the sword, because he has to hog out material for all the electronics and the wiring and stuff. So I'm still working on how to wire all this stuff up and how to make it kind of easy to follow on the video, because I'm using like a breadboard and it's sort of hard to sort of teach
Mm-hmm.
current flow and stuff with like a jumbled mess of wires. And even with it straight as I could possibly make it, like I'm having to iterate the design because I started with one LED and then I proceeded to do 5 and figure out how the addressing works. So every time I'm keep like expanding the code to get a little bit more complicated. So I have to keep moving the stuff around, and I'm like kind of weighing, on the video, do I make like a diagram? I think I'm going to go that direction. It's like maybe show me fiddling with the wires in part of the screen and then have like a little diagram or something explaining like, here's what happens when the code hits this and that. Not too in depth, but just kind of like a summary of like the logic of what's happening. But it's sort of a interesting challenge in trying to make something, because I'm also 3D modeling in the video, so that's not terribly exciting either. So how do you make two things that are sort of not, to me, not very entertaining? So I don't know. It's sort of a interesting challenge.
So does that mean you're going to be starting Geeksmithing too, where you have the more in-depth videos like all the cool kids?
I don't know. I think that would be taken away from my Geeksmithing all of my 3,000 subscribers. I don't know. I'm kind of in the camp where I don't have a lot to go around as it is, so all in one spot is better than spread into two for me. I don't know. I thought about it. I thought of also doing like an in-depth version of some of the videos too, kind of going, not really a part 2, but sort of like an appendix, kind of idea. And then I got my new miter saw in the mail today, a couple days ago from Skill. They sent me the replacement to my maybe 7 or 8 year old chop saw, which was not under any warranty. I don't even know why they did it, to be honest. But I'm not going to complain. They definitely got a new customer out of me. And I got that thing for free. It's my mother-in-law's. So when it's got like a laser like alignment and all this other stuff in the new one. So pretty interesting. How about you, Mark?
Let's see. Last week we finally decided to spend a little bit of money and got a gazebo and some patio furniture, so we're not sitting on the plastic stackable chairs anymore. So yeah, I built a 10 by 12 gazebo with curtains and mosquito nets and all sorts of craziness, and it's really nice. So we just ordered lights for that. I put them up today, and they're like the crazy LED. You can change color, Edison bulb type of things. And so I did that. But other than that, I haven't really been able to. I finished the design for the prize we have to give away, or I have to give away. But it's still a matter of getting down into the basement and getting some temporary electric to the 3D printer and the computer and print those out. But hopefully that'll get done this week. That's all I got.
Super cool.
That and an angry baby. So,
what are we talking about today?
I'll cut a little bit of this part out.
Okay.
Just wondering how you guys want to address this, because I don't want to read the whole post. I think that we should just kind of reference it. Is there a certain part that you guys want to kind of focus on?
So is there a part that we can speak to?
I think that there's a part here where it says, so why is it that we talked about the 8 podcasts? I subscribe to 75% of them all follow the same pattern. What's on your bench? Which maker, party, event, or meetup event did you just get back from? What is the latest content creator worry? Who hit a subscriber milestone? Who is getting the video stolen? No more than 10 minutes of loose topic discussion. I think we have more than that most times. Discuss tools that cost more than my first car. I don't think that really applies to us unless you're talking about Mark's 3D printers, which probably cost more than one of my cars. What are you watching, listening to, self-promotion?
We could talk about, like, how did we choose to format this podcast? We could give insight to whoever this person is or people that feel that way, because we know most of the people that they're talking about. And it's not that they're doing it on purpose, or they're doing it to single people out. They've evolved, just like our show's evolved. If this person were to start a podcast, theirs would evolve. Mm-hmm. Because we're about to sell out. So I'm sure that we could fit into that too.
Well, I mean, isn't the goal to hopefully be able to fit into some of that in some ways?
That's what I forget what comedian addressed that. They're like selling out, like that's the whole point, isn't it? You're doing this, and I mean, yeah, it's fun, but you're also hoping to make a living and make your life better. So, I mean, there's a difference between getting paid for what you're doing and, I guess, whoring yourself out. Like going against what you believe just to get money.
All right, so what are we keeping in and what are we keeping out? Because this is all stuff we could use.
I think maybe I could just read this one section of it right here and use that as kind of like a jumping off point, where we can talk about how we decided to set up this podcast, how we've changed it. Because I think in the beginning we were almost trying to model ourselves after some of the others, and then kind of found our own path.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. Okay, so this week we are talking about a post that came up on Facebook in one of the Facebook maker groups, one called Makers Unite to Succeed. And there was a gentleman by the name of Ryan Ridgely that made this post that was really interesting about kind of the assumption of podcasts and why podcasts are set up a certain way. Now, I'm not going to read the entire post, but I'm going to read a small section of it that we're going to use to kind of address and use as a jumping off point for tonight's discussion. So Ryan writes, so why is it that of the 8 maker podcasts I subscribe to, 75% of them all follow the same pattern? What's on your bench? Which maker party meetup event did you just get back from? What is the latest content creator worry who hit a subscriber milestone who is getting video stolen? Usually no more than 10 minutes of loose topic discussion. Discussing tools that cost more than my first car. What are you watching, listening to, and self-promotion. It goes on, but that's the focus of that post that we're kind of going to use to talk about our podcast and what we have, I guess the point that we've kind of gotten to over the last year since we've just celebrated our year, in how and why we do the show this way compared to other similar podcasts.
Yeah, I think we know a lot of, probably most of the people that he's referring to on those other podcasts. We can maybe give that guy some insight as to why they talk about the stuff that they do or how that they frame their episodes. But I would like to think that all of ours are kind of structured the same way. Because you think, like, we just got on this Skype conversation, 20 minutes ago? Mm-hmm. And we've been talking. So this is our first face-to-face conversation in a week. So we've been talking about our kids. We've been talking about all the stuff that we would normally talk about on the show. So it's that little banter back and forth. What's on your bench? What a little bit of time or whatever he was referring to about a loose topic. It's like, well, you're having a conversation with your friends.
Isn't that kind of the point of a maker podcast, though? What's on your bench? What are you doing right now?
We could talk about tort reform if we wanted to, but I don't think that would really fall in line with what we're doing.
I think that there was almost like a general discontent about I think he was trying to represent a lot of people that maybe don't have certain connections in the maker community or just a casual maker, and maybe feels that the shows are being produced or talked about on a level that maybe he doesn't feel like he relates to as much anymore, or just not for his liking. I'm not really sure, but I thought it was an interesting statement because even some of the bigger maker podcasts out there, they didn't start out that way. That's where they're at now. And I think they probably started out very similar to where we did, where it's a couple friends talking, and as people's careers kind of progress, they get more involved, they get bigger, and even in the post, he makes a reference to calling them maker celebrities. Because but the whole goal for a lot of people who are doing this is to get bigger and get a bigger audience, and hopefully be able to make a living doing this. I'm not sure if we all have the same aspirations that a lot of the others do, but I know that we've tried to follow some similar formats because they've proven to be somewhat successful in the past.
Yeah, I think it's conversational. I mean, if you were to call somebody on the phone, you're like, "Hey man, what you been up to?" "Nothing." "What you been up to?" "Nothing." Podcast complete. Like,
and we've had those issues sometimes.
Yeah, occasionally.
Well, yeah, but like, we literally just asked that question to each other, and I now know what you guys are doing. So we are now closer as friends. And it just happened to be maker related. And I assume that Making It is one of the podcasts that he's referring to. Like, it has to be. Because a lot of theirs fit that kind of bill, right? So they get on and they do the exact same thing. They're busy with their lives, and the one time a week where they all get to like sit down and talk to each other, they can bounce ideas off just like we do. We bounce ideas off each other. We bounce like project ideas, hang-ups that we might be having or something. Oh, maybe you should look at it like this or try it like that. It's standard because we're all in that world. And the maker celebrities are like, yeah, that's funny because it's kind of true.
It's gotten to be that way for some people, but that's where they are now. It's not where they started out.
No, but there are very few people in this world that like are birthed celebrities. Like, unless you're a Prince or I don't know, one of Will Smith's kids or something. I don't know. Like, you have to start somewhere, and you can either choose to, be the status quo and continue to grow your business small. And I had to think, right? So I know Bob Claggett. I've been to his house. I dropped Bob's name because it's convenient. We all know Bob. But I've had conversations about, with him about not wanting to ride coattails, which may sound like hypocritical to some people, but there are people that we know in our community that really like to do that. They like to hold on to people's associations with people, and they like to elevate themselves purely on that association. And that bugs me, and I try to go the opposite way. But I think part of his irritation in that comment was that, like, these celebrity people, they don't pay attention to everybody else who supports them. They only pay attention now to the people who are on their level. So when they're like, what have you been watching? Where you have the opportunity to promote like a smaller channel where you could direct some of your larger audience to someone who doesn't have a large audience, they choose to stay
at that tier.
They choose to recommend laterally, right? Mm-hmm. Which doesn't help anybody. It's like, oh, hey, have you guys watched Veritasium's video? Have you ever heard of those? Send everybody over to Casey Neistat, man. Give him some love. Like, they don't need that. So I think that might be something this guy is talking about. Like, doesn't feel like they're throwing enough down to the little people.
It's kind of a tough thing to comment on because, I mean, you even just said it right now. You happen to know Bob. You've been to his house. So it might sound like name dropping at times, but it's because we actually know the person. And it's funny you bring it up because I've gotten to the point where, I'll still watch everybody's video. So I'll watch Bob's, I'll watch Steve Ramsey, I'll watch David Picciuto, Jimmy DiResta. I'll watch their videos, but I've also gotten to the point where I don't usually comment on their videos anymore because I don't want to seem like I'm trying to be in the comments kind of waving my hand to try to ride those coattails. I'm actively trying to avoid it now because I don't want to seem that way either. I'm actually actively trying to avoid it to a sense, to a certain degree. I don't know if that matters, but it kind of matters to me right now. I'm trying to go my own way.
I think it's perspective. Because, we were talking about it earlier about the different maker groups and little communities and niches and fraternity type things that we all belong to in one way or the other. And, like, the I Like to Make Stuff group, which we've talked about here quite a bit, because a lot of people we know belong to that group. I remember Wes and I, we were talking about that when we first joined that group, there weren't that many people in there. And now there's a lot of people in there, and now it's starting to become this invitation-only type thing just because of the sheer magnitude of people who want to join that group, and it's trying not to become some over-bloated, band of faceless people. You keep it smaller, you keep it intimate, so you actually make connections with those people. So when we met those people a long time ago, and someone who's joining that group now, when there's like a couple thousand, they do seem like these maker celebrity type people now that they have 1 million subscribers or hundreds of thousands of subscribers. I was like, well, I remember that person when they made stupid stuff, or back when they weren't as baller and needing agents and getting sponsorships for thousands of dollars worth of tools. And so I think it's like your relationship with Izzy, Wes.
Yeah.
Like, you can drop Izzy's name like so easily because you have that relationship together. It's not a thing for you guys. You guys are friends. You guys are business associates. You have a long standing. But if you were to walk up to someone who is just now getting into this and they see Izzy Swan's stuff and they begin to idolize this person they see on the internet, and you're like, oh yeah, that's him. Like, ain't nothing but a thing. And we could drop Izzy's name so nonchalant. And they're like, oh, they're talking about him like, ooh, he's in some level and I'm not. And like, well, you form relationships with people.
Maybe that's what's happening too. Maybe that's exactly, the feeling that some people are getting through this.
Well, I record with my pinky out. I'm not sure if you guys do. Maybe we should just make that known. We had to pay the fine. We had to go to school. We had to do all of the upper crusty type things to start a podcast. Right? It wasn't just we all got a bunch of microphones off Amazon, the most exclusive buyers club.
It's the Amazon Black Club.
Yeah, it's what I would like if this person was in front of us. Like, the one thing I would try to convey to that guy is the barriers are so low for all of this stuff. So to be frustrated is one thing, to be jealous is another, to air your grievances. And he even made the comment. He's like, I know I don't have to listen. He's like, I know that this is taken with a grain of salt. He's like, I know I'm not forced to do anything. He's just making his opinion known, which great. But I know that if that guy writes a message to Bob Claggett, it may take a minute because he's crazy busy, because he's a professional. He's going to return that call. You're not calling Brad Pitt. You're calling some guy that works out of his garage, in Georgia. So you can idolize people up to a certain extent, but most of that is probably going to be your own imagination after a certain point.
A couple of years ago, I actually felt like this guy a little bit, but I decided to actually get started and get involved. And I got the attention of a couple of people, and I got invited to the group. Granted, early on, where it was probably easier to get in, but Wes took notice, and that's kind of how we started talking. And I think it's more just about getting involved in the community a little bit more. Although I know he's a part of a maker group, but I think that there might be another social aspect that's missing, because this entire thing is based on your social connections.
Yeah, definitely have to put yourself out there in kind of a risky scenario in a way, expose yourself in a, not with a trench coat sort of way, but, an emotionally exposure, emotional exposure, like a vulnerability that sort of goes along with it.
And for us, as an example, I think that some of it has been out of a little bit of luck, just simply, presenting in Boston.
Yeah, for sure. We
happen to have a podcast. We happen to have had something that was fitting for that show, and we got invited, and we were able to go.
No. Invited is not the word.
Well, okay, you're right. It wasn't invited. It was, saying
it was, hey, we have a podcast.
Right. You're
asking for people who have podcasts. Can we go to the thing too? And I went, absolutely.
It wasn't even
criteria.
Right.
No, it was like, are we kind of, and we were even really nervous about it because out of the 4 or 5 different people that were presenting, we were the absolute JV team. We were the most kind of off the beaten path. And I remember I talked to the guys who were putting it together. I was like, is this a good idea for us to do this? Like, are we out of our league? And are we going to like stand up there and just embarrass ourselves? Or are people even going to care? And they're like, no. They're like, come out there. Like, be exactly who you are. Do exactly what you're doing. Don't try to cater or pander to this audience. Do what you do. So there was nothing special about us other than we went to our super secret Amazon and bought our most expensive big baller microphones and responded when someone said, hey, do people want to do this thing? And we went, hey, sure. Or actually, I went, yes, we will do it. And then I told the three of you guys, hey, you need to come to Boston because I agreed to this thing already.
That's pretty much right.
Yeah.
Hey, Catherine, I need to go to Boston. After the whole year, I had like 4 trips already, practically.
And I didn't think I was going to be able to go, but it worked out.
I was going to buy you a ticket if it didn't work out.
For sure.
It would have been a terrible ticket. You would have had like 5 layovers, but you would have eventually got there. But I think to address another one of the points is that he mentioned like early on, like in the infancy of some of these, whatever the 8 podcasts are this guy listens to, and how they've changed now and how they talk about, other celebrities or tools he can't afford. Or he's like, well, before you had a lot of insightful things that could help me, grow my craft or grow my business or whatever. And now I guess paraphrase in my own words, he's a little irritated that they don't drop insight. There's not enough of those things that make somebody internally grow. They just kind of talk about all the fancy things they have that he can't relate to. But
you got to think the people that are in the podcast, they're growing themselves, right? So their perspective shifts and changes along with their knowledge. So maybe when they start out woodworking, they're more interested in introductory woodworking sort of material, and then they've progressed beyond the initial stuff, and they, I guess, would hope that their audience progresses with them, but you can't always assume that everyone has the same, initial playing field. I don't think you can make everybody happy in that instance. You're going to have to, if I'm talking about CNC machines, because I happen to have one now, whereas, a year ago, I wouldn't have really cared so much about a podcast talking about CNC, but now it's something interesting to me. So it just depends on where you're at, and I can kind of get his point a little bit. If he's just getting into it, they're not really dropping stuff that is pertinent to where he is. But
maybe he represents an audience that is kind of going, unserviced though in a couple ways though, because if you're part of any of these social groups, there tends to be a pretty big push and kind of like this community nature of making more, getting better, and putting your stuff out there. And then a result of doing all that on a regular basis is growth. I think growth is just kind of like a natural result of doing something over and over again as you get better. But he might represent a group of people that maybe spends a half an hour a week in his garage tinkering around with something with no real goal in mind, maybe a single project, but that's really it. And that's a group or an audience that I don't think is getting addressed very often right now, because I think that we all have our sights set on different things.
That's a good point too. If you're not interested in necessarily growing, you just want to have it as a hobby, then.
Well, it sounded like he talked about growing his business, which kind of caught me off guard, because those guys, a lot of the people that he's talking about are doing the same thing. They are trying to grow their business. And I think they're trying to grow their business in 2 different veins. I think this guy might be, if he's not the novice like you're talking about, he may be a professional who is growing in woodworking, trying to get to learn more about technique or learn more about business practices or whatever, not so much about online content creation issues, which seem to be, I mean, all the rage. But again, that's where this environment kind of came from. So it could be what you guys are talking about. It could be someone who just likes to make things part-time and wants to focus on that, doesn't really care about YouTube and the issues and the drama that come along with that. Or it could be someone who is just a woodworker and, again, just doesn't care about YouTube problems or doesn't care about, the Glowforge is on back order for 2 years. Like, ooh. So but if you feel that there's a need or you feel that you are not being catered to, again, the barrier to entry is 0. Like, you and someone else that loves chisels just as much as you do can start Chisel Talk. Here's a podcast for people who don't care about YouTube and who don't care about first world, like, hipster woodworker problems. Like, make that. Be the change you want to see, right? Or you want to be that person and gather your own audience who feel the same way that you do.
If you don't have some sort of cute little name for your garage workshop, like is the trend now.
Yeah, you have to have an alter ego and stickers. You need your maker hobby kit.
Yeah, the sticker swap got out of hand for a while. Everybody was in the red because of their sticker bill.
Sticker bill is no joke. Things aren't cheap.
Nope.
I spent more on stickers than I spent on some tools.
What do you think about some of this stuff, Mark? Because I know you're sort of a little bit of an outsider for some of this because you don't have a YouTube channel. You don't necessarily have, maybe not because you don't want to, but you're not there yet. So I know some of the stuff that we talk about, maybe you're not as into specifically yet. Or
yeah, stickers suck. No.
Yep.
No, I mean, I get where he's coming from. Like, I understand that point of view that, like, I don't and probably will never own anything Festool because I look at those prices and cry. But on the other hand, it's realizing that every single person out there, like, I remember being in the middle of building my kitchen and making it being on their, like, either 3rd or 5th episode or whatever. I think it was their 3rd because I blew through them pretty quick and was really sad that there was no more. But that was and when I first found Bob's videos, he was still, really kind of, I mean, it was good production quality, but he's still brand new to it. And now they are all at the point where they are further down the line than most people in the process. So they are doing very well for themselves. And I can understand the frustration of what you guys said before, catering to people who are at the same level as you are. But on the other hand, it's, I'm not looking at them doing that and getting angry about it. Like, why aren't they still catering to people below them? It's just the process. It's the natural flow of what we're doing. If your goal is to, get to the point of Bob and Jimmy, then you're going to work for that. And eventually, hard work does pay off. And if you're busting hump, and yeah, you're going to get there eventually. So I'm not going to look at them with any animosity that they're not, still looking back. They're still very approachable people, but it's it's just what it is. I do my own thing, and as little of it as it is right now. And that's what you got to focus on. You can't be like jealous or angry at other people for not doing what you think is right. Like Josh said, the barrier to entry is what for us, $90 for these mics, and we got them on Black Friday deals, so they were a bit cheaper.
And Rick, I think you happened onto some really good advice. So if there's anybody out there listening and you're fairly new to the maker game, or you want to you want to get into making on a more regular basis, whether it's for YouTube, just for personal growth, for home improvement. Don't watch the new videos from any of the big makers, from like Bob or Jimmy DeRest almost doesn't apply.
At the beginning.
Right. Start watching their first videos, and actually, I think it will give you a lot more confidence to see how some of their early projects were, and I think it actually makes it a little more manageable, and gives you a better perception of what growth looks like over a period of time. Because a lot of these guys who, according to this guy in the post, labels as maker celebrities, take a look at their first videos, and you'll see how far they've come in. But it's been 3 years, almost 4 or 5 years for some of these guys. It's been a pretty long period of time.
Actually, funny comparison. I just saw an article today. Chris Pratt was posing in front of the van he lived in when his acting career started off, and now he's GD Star-Lord. So it's just perspective and time. That's all any of this is. If you want to work towards being that YouTube celebrity, work towards it. If that's not your goal and you just want to hang out with other people who do what you do, start another group. Start a Facebook group of people who are like-minded. That's the beauty of social media. If you don't like what's there, take 20 minutes and make it. And then just give it time to, like you're planting seed in your garden. You gotta give it time to grow.
I think that's the basis of that whole post, is that the guy was irritated at the idea that people are growing and that they're changing because of that growth.
It seems that
or
way,
maybe
man.
It's just ignoring the fact that they are growing. I think they're focusing on changing and not asking yourself why or what is that a result of. Because if I really liked wood carving and I went out in my garage every day and made the same types of wood carving for people, and people bought it and I made it and they bought it and I made it, and it just kind of kept going, and that fed the meter, then great. But if somebody came up to you and go, hey man, look what this thing can do, or here's a new set of hand chisels that can do this extra kind of detail work, you're like, oh, that would make this process so much easier. Or, oh, I'd be able to do this little thing because of this new piece. Granted, it's not a laser cutter, a CNC, or any of these other robotic things, but if you add anything to your toolbox, it's either going to give you a new capability or make something you already do easier, then that is improving. So it doesn't have to be these monumentous leaps that we tend to think. Like, the minute Steve Ramsey, picks up a 3D printer or like a Glowforge, it's going to be like, oh, Bob Dylan's going to electric now. Like, But
just call him Bob Dylan.
But it's the future, right? If you want to hone your craft and you want to be that guy who is the expert at X, then wonderful. That's your choice. But you can't expect everybody else to stop, because the world isn't going to stop. You're going to be left behind.
We all have our own paths.
Yeah, and these guys don't want to be left behind. They want to grow and they want to improve. They want to get better. They see a new capability, and that spurs more creativity. That spurs additional projects or additional ideas or capabilities or things that they have, because that stuff wasn't around yesterday. And it's exciting, and it makes you want to do more. So if you're presented with that same opportunity, there are those same things, which you are because you're in a free market, you are, like, and you don't see that, then wonderful. But I think faulting people because they are growing and they're starting to focus on growing, like, I would hope that the audience, if you continue to be a fan of their celebrity status, you would want to grow along with them. Because, I mean, Wes and Mark both had 3D printers. I didn't have a 3D printer. I always thought 3D printing was interesting. It was something I didn't have, so I was a little jealous. So I'm like, oh, everybody has their 3D printer because I'm on the outside of this conversation. So I had this, like, meh kind of attitude. And then I literally found a $200 3D printer, which anybody could buy. And then I got my foot in the door. And now I want to get a better one. And I want to get one that can do this. And one that can do this. And one that can do this. because you grow. And yes, I could get a hot glue gun, and I could do the same exact thing with a hot glue gun that you guys do with your 3D printers. I don't need all that fancy technology. But, okay, then go be a purist for whatever trophy you're hoping to get. Like, go keep reaching for it. Like, while the rest of us are going to go and improve
Just
and
stick
see
with
what
your
else is
scroll
out
saw and don't go to any other tool. Yeah.
See, the technology helps me offset a certain amount of laziness to actually make stuff.
And that is a separate conversation. I know that we can get into it with a lot of purists, and I think that's what it is. That these ADD millennial kids just want to rush to the end result. They don't want to savor the craft. And that could be some motivation that this guy has also. But if this podcast tomorrow were to get a sponsor and we were to get better and someone were to pay us money for the things that we're doing right now, like, there's a conversation we would have to have about, is that good? Because we're being validated. Somebody is actually wanting to give us money for something that we enjoy doing and people hopefully find value in. Or do we go, no, I don't want to take your money, because then we would sell out. But we would just be doing the exact same thing we're doing right now without money in our hand. So where's the lot? Either where's the logic or where's the forced loyalty? Like, to what?
Yeah. Well, see, that goes into my comment from before. Are you selling out or are you whoring out? There are very specific differences in that.
Well, yeah, because the latter suggests a compromising of your own values.
Yes.
And I think that's a little bit of the difference. I don't know if I know anybody that's done that, but I don't know. We'll have to, make our own decisions.
That would be like us getting sponsored by Harbor Freight and coming out and saying there are no better tools than Harbor Freight.
No, I think I'd be more like getting sponsored by IKEA
cool,
and say they make the best furniture ever.
Hey, I have an IKEA kitchen.
Or saying that, particle board is the best material ever invented.
Formaldehyde tastes great.
For making cutting blocks.
Yep.
Why are there chips of wood in my food?
I was recording this last video at that wood shop, and I had a huge piece of sawdust. It was stuck in my mustache, inhale right into my mouth as I was trying to talk to the camera, and I just coughed for a good 3 or 4 minutes.
You gotta go to the doctor. Why? I have splinters in my lung.
That was fun.
I think I might need to seek out some dust collection sponsors or something. Even though I work outside and there's always a nice airflow. After standing outside for a while, I blow my nose. You just see the remnants on the Kleenex.
Uh-huh.
Blow your nose and you got wood putty.
Okay.
There's a tip video.
Well, with that, no, I'm gonna perfectly try to sum up this guy's, not even the argument, because it's not an argument, but his point. You go, man, dust collection would be great, right? I said the same thing, so I got his shop vac, and I'm like, ooh, dust collection's wonderful. And then I saw somebody else had that Harbor Freight dust collector. I'm like, well, I don't need that big, expensive thing. I got what I got, and it works great. And then I got a coupon, and I bought one, and it was way better. I'm like, this is the bee's knees. How could I ever go back to my stupid shop vac or ever not having dust collection? I went to this guy's shop. He had the Laguna, friggin' taller than me, massive, 220, crazy dust collector. And I'm like, God, that thing must have been crazy expensive. I don't need all that because I've got my Harbor Freight dust collector now, which is the exact same sentiment I had before. I've just been bumped up a notch.
Yep.
I turned that thing on. That Harbor Freight dust collector was nothing. I could suck a bowling ball through the hose of that thing.
You're dead to me. Do you hear me? You're dead to me.
Yeah. And the Festool tool's the same way. Not that I'm going to go out right now and retrofit my entire shop. But it's not just this snooty, I'm going to purposely... I don't like Tastios. I'm only a Cheerios person. It is legitimately better. And so when you find something that's
There's always-
legitimately better,
That's
you like
kind
to
of
tell
life, though, isn't it?
everybody, huh?
That's life, though, isn't it? There's always, whether it's you or a product or a tool or whatever, there's always someone or something better. You know?
But if you share that information, are you bragging? Or are you trying to tell people, like, hey, this thing is awesome. And if you have the money to go get it, you should maybe think about investing in it because it's awesome.
You know what?
Here are
I
the
think
reasons.
like all those people that get pissed off about, oh, you got all your fancy expensive tools. I honestly believe that it is simply jealousy. Like, I look at all those
Oh, yeah.
people that have it and I go, yeah, I am full on jealous of you for being able to afford that, and I want it and I can't have it. But on the other hand, there's always, like, in order to make something, every single person is right. You don't need a lot of the crazy tools. You don't need a lot of the expensive tools. You can make anything you want
You just have
with
to have
the
time.
most basic of crap. Exactly.
Time and
it all
patience.
comes down to time and patience.
Yep.
The more fancy tools, the more expensive tools let you get the point A to point B faster. But if you can't afford it, you just have to dedicate more time to getting the point A to point B, and that's all it is. So, am I jealous of those people that have those tools? No. Like, I'm supremely jealous of the rest of, because he's got the damn plasma cutter, and I want a CNC to make things out of sheet metal, but I also can't afford the stock to make things out of stuff like that. So I'm not there yet. Maybe one day I will be. Maybe I won't. Who the hell knows? But the point is, I don't look down on them for having them. You know, it is simply jealousy. I am jealous that they have it and I don't.
You're coveting.
Yeah. I'm a very, very covetous bastard.
I think Making It made a point one time where they were like, they were talking about some comment that they got. I was like, oh, of course, you guys out of everybody needs to get a free tool. Where the companies like to give free tools to people that have huge channels that already have a bunch of tools. So it's just, you're adding gold on top of gold.
That's just
Right? They're not distributing the wealth. Exactly. So part of me was like, that's kind of legit because you guys are getting a bunch of free stuff and you already just have a big baller shop. But it didn't turn around to like, well, why didn't Rockler call me? Like, because Rockler doesn't know who the hell I am. And they have no reason to know who I am.
And Rockler's
And
looking for free advertisement, so they go, let me give you a tool and you'll talk about it. Don't pay for it and just tell people about it. And then those people will give us their money and we'll we'll make money.
And we'll throw up a little in our mouth. But Izzy's talked about this, and Ben Weta talked about this. Like, you have to put yourself out there, and you have to make them find value in you. And if you don't, pimp yourself out to people, they don't know who you are, so they can't throw something at you lavishly because why would they do that? They're a business. So if this person that wrote this message is a woodworker, and a restaurant came up to you and was like, oh, you do amazing work. It's so great. I've got a nice restaurant. How about you make me an entire restaurant full of booths and tables? And I'll put your name on every single one of them. And you look at that person like, that's a lot of work that I have to do. Like, that sounds like a really crap, gig for me. What am I getting out of this? Is you have to put yourself in that person's shoes, that company's shoes. Like, dear Saw Stop, please give Josh a free gigantic table saw. I'll put you in my YouTube video, and
please give the Making Geeks news table saws.
yeah, it would be super swell. And so that's what times 4. That's about 10 grand that they would lose out on. And if I was the CFO of SawStop, and I went to go report to the board, and they're like, why are we losing money hand over fist? They're like, oh, there's all these maker groups, and all these guys wrote me a message and says, can I have a saw, please? And so naturally, I just had to give it to them, all of them, because I didn't want anybody to be upset. Sorry, we're in the red, fellas, and our company's going to go under because we give away stuff instead of selling it. But they, these guys have garage wood shops, so I had to give them one. No, it doesn't work that way. As much as it irritates me that I'm not being thrown free tools by strangers, like, what sense does that make that someone would? You go to the gas station just because you got a nice car, you think you're going to get your gas for free? Like, I don't know. It bugs me. So, I think we can defend people that he's talking about in a certain manner, but at the same time understand
The point of view, yeah.
Yeah, I get that point of view because we are not the biggest ballers. Like, we don't have hundreds of thousands of subscribers or tens of thousands of subscribers. Some of you do. So, I mean, we get that perspective. But I think when we do what we're doing right now, we have a little bit more insight. So
do you think that
you go
people
back to listen to that first episode?
Do you think that people perceive us as having a bigger presence or more popular than we actually are?
I hope so.
That's the game, right? To try to seem bigger than what you actually are.
Fake it
That's what
till
she
you
said.
make it.
Peacock.
That's what she said.
But, I mean, I've had our frustrations when we first started this because again, like this guy is doing, I tried to compare. I tried to compare what we were doing to what Making It was doing or what other, maker kind of related podcasts were doing. And we weren't them. And I expected that, I have a microphone now. Where are my 10,000 subscribers? Like, that's just how it works. That's not how it works.
And in fact,
we've
we
grown.
spent time talking about that exact thing, and almost restructured things and took a different approach to the show because of that.
Yeah, I challenge people that if you haven't listened to our first, say, 3 or 4 episodes, like, go back and listen to those again and
Be gentle.
Yeah.
And we apologize in advance.
Yes.
Well, I apologize for last week for those people because my internet connection was garbage. So if you made it through that episode, listen to me garbling, then good at you. But we tried to structure our show like those guys. We tried to have these deep, impactful kind of conversations. What can people walk away with? We want to plant the seed. And I was like, this sounds disingenuous. It sounds stupid. Like, that's not what we want to talk about. We sounded fake. And we started talking about Star Wars and everything hit it off.
Any more to add to that topic, guys?
Have we grown and changed?
I hope so. It's kind of the name of the game.
Yeah, that's the point.
Do you think we've grown for the better?
I think we're growing for the better.
Yeah,
I don't think we're in our final form yet, but I think we have figured out our direction and we figured out what works for us and what we're happy with.
I think we also figured out what each of us kind of brings to the table too. I think it kind of took a while to figure out what everybody's role was in this too.
Yeah. Wes, you got anything else to add?
Nope.
Because when you're quiet
That's
for a
what I-
long time, we
that's what
get
I
to
bring
the
to the
very end of
table.
the show,
Yeah.
and you bring half an hour's worth of content. All right, what's everybody been geeking out about this week?
E3 Nintendo news.
What
Yeah.
news?
Well, nothing too revolutionary, but they released some new information about the new Mario game called Super Mario Odyssey coming out, and it's very strange and wonderful. Like it's in the vein of Super Mario 64 and Super Mario Sunshine, so it's more of a, like, the worlds aren't as linear. They're kind of like, they drop you in like this environment and you kind of explore and figure out what you need to do and collect things. And instead of having all these different power-ups that Mario acquires, like different hats or whatever, he has this one hat. He has a hat that looks like his normal hat but has eyes, and it's like that's a character apparently called Cappy. Oh, what a great name. And he basically throws it at pretty much anything, more or less. Mostly enemies. And when he throws it at them, he basically takes over their body. Like he inhabits them.
Or the item, whatever it is.
Or the item. So if there's like a flying Koopa Troopa right, with the wings. He throws the hat onto the Koopa Troopa, and he basically instantly takes control of the Koopa Troopa like that's his character, and you get whatever power-up or ability that character or enemy has for that moment to solve whatever puzzle is in front of you in that level or whatever. So you have different kind of things, like apparently Goombas don't slip on ice, so there's like some puzzly elements there. There's some characters that are kind of can extend themselves to have like a longer reach, so they can reach items that are out of the way. You can do it to like the bullet bills that get shot out of the cannon, so that you can fly around like a rocket ship. It's just kind of interesting. And then one of the parts they showed a T-Rex, and he throws the hat, and anything you throw the hat on, it puts the Mario hat on top of it, and they get a little mustache like Mario that shows that you're inhabiting him. So it shows a dapper T-Rex with a hat and a little mustache, and he's like running around roaring and stuff.
Roar! I say roar.
It looks crazy, and they showed some stuff, like the graphics and everything. It looked pretty interesting. So I was kind of mad before, but now I'm on board. It's pretty exciting. It has just like pure, like if you watch the video that they released with it, they have like a big band, kind of music, kind of jazzy music to go along with it. Which is totally out of character for most Mario, like even Nintendo trailers. So I recommend checking it out. It's got an upbeat kind of thing, and it actually plays into the story of the game, where the main city that you run around in, it's sort of like GTA, like a New York City kind of environment, but it's called New Donk City, like Donkey Kong, and all the street names are Donkey Kong references, and the mayor of the city is Pauline, which was the girl that was to be rescued in the Donkey Kong games before Princess Peach existed. So they're going all the way back to the beginning and referencing that character as like an actual character in the story. And she's apparently singing the theme song and all this stuff. It's interesting how they're kind of going back to the old school, and they have some 2D stuff mixed in, and it's pretty cool. So check the video out. That's my watch recommendation. Nintendo.
I think they should only make 8-bit games forever.
I agree. Yes, I agree. For
See,
Atari.
the RetroPie.
We don't have any time for all this newfangled stuff. Getting better, changing.
Right, we don't need those extra D's in here.
Did you guys hear just yesterday the CEO of Atari said that they are looking at making another console?
There's still a CEO of Atari?
I'm not bringing it up as a good idea. I just find it interesting that anybody would want to jump into the console battle right now.
Yeah,
I think the simplicity of like an Atari controller is very like Apple stylish kind of thing now. Like you only have a controller that only has one button. Ooh.
Re-released the 2600. Have you, Mark? What are you geeking out about?
I don't know. I mean, I haven't really been paying attention to E3. I know what's going on. I am kind of excited for the new DuckTales because the more I see, the more I like the animation style behind it, which is I get excited about animation styles. It's there's so many cartoons out there that are just drawn like garbage, mostly on Cartoon Network. And seeing that style was really cool, and I hope they start bringing back more of the old cartoons like that because I like that. But I'm kind of having a brain fart actually. It's been kind of a busy week, so I haven't been paying attention to anything fun lately. That's all I got.
I got an Apple Watch.
Oh,
Ooh,
you
wow.
splurger.
So for all you people, I'm talking about big fancy things that you don't have. Ooh, or you probably do have because this has been out forever and I just now got one.
Have fun charging it every day.
It's really not that bad because I can't wear it to work, so it stays on the charger most of the day anyway.
Oh, all right, fair enough.
And it has a little activity thing. And it's like, you haven't done very much today. I'm like, damn, man, it's freaking 4 o'clock. I just now put this watch on. So just because I don't like to have a thing talking trash to me, like I've had to go exercise more than I would in a normal day in like the 5 hours till it's time to go to bed. But it's kind of neat. Like, I don't know. It's today I noted it because we were out to breakfast. My son's birthday. We went out to breakfast with him, and you guys were talking on Slack. I had a text message from someone else, and I don't remember what else happened. And I'll just like buzzed my wrist, and I looked, and I'm like, oh, that's neat, and like flicked it away, and I was back to having a conversation where my wife was looking on her phone, and my kids were trying to talk to her, and I love her, and just not a hit toward her, but like she was answering messages on her phone. It just took her a while to do it. And I was like, I answered 3 messages, and you're talking on 1, and I'm back to being conversational. I was like, this is kind of neat.
That is absolutely the one thing I love about the smartwatch, because I got the Pebble 2. Mm-hmm. I backed a dead company. Yeah.
Like I don't have to have my phone out. Like my phone stays away.
It keeps your phone in your pocket. You're not looking at it every 3 seconds. If anything happens, you can tell it what you want to know about. You look at your wrist, you hit go away, or if it's important, you go, oh, I'll be right back.
Yep. It's weird because it has these pre-recorded responses. Like if someone sends you a text message, you can like draw out words and it'll spell it, or it has some that are kind of canned, and one says yup, and then I put one that says nah, man. And so now I can just. So if you get something from me that's like yup, which is normally what I would say anyway, but if it says nah, man, that's the only response people normally get from me anyway. But yeah, I was surprised by that today. There was a side effect I didn't think would be there. I would actually get to look at people instead of looking at my phone in public now. So it's neater than I thought it was going to be. So that's about it.
I'll bring up one more thing. It's not something I'm entirely geeking out about, but something I think was interesting. There was a pretty well-known company that made gaming furniture for quite a while called Geek Chic. They just went out of business. I thought was really interesting. They used to do these really beautiful custom-made gaming tables for like $2,000-$3,000 and all this really high-end gaming paraphernalia like dice towers and boxes and card holders and stuff. And they went out of business. And I thought it was really interesting because there is a little bit more of an opening in the market now that they are gone. And I actually might go forward with some plans that I had before to make some of those things and try to sell them.
Cool.
Not that I'm going to, take whatever business they had left over, but I kind of like that there's an opportunity for selling some more of the higher end things.
Nice.
Now we just got to make IKEA and Walmart fall, and we'll be able to sell all our stuff.
That's right.
Or you just get hope to be bought out, like Whole Foods got bought out today.
That's right, by Amazon.
Oh, $13 billion.
I just saw a meme. It was Jeff Bezos' Alexa. Alexa, buy my list from Whole Foods. Okay, buying Whole Foods. Never mind. Go ahead with it.
Well, in your opinion, is Whole Foods like a good thing, or is it a pretentious place that sells unnecessarily expensive items?
What I think that Amazon is probably going to pick up their supply chain and try to go forward more with their Amazon grocery stores, though, is what's going to happen.
Yeah.
I like the idea of it because I always wanted to try dry-aged steak, and they have it there. But it's also one of those things where if you have to ask for how much it costs, you can't afford it.
They have that in the Harris Teeter now.
There's no prices on that stuff. So I'm like, oh, I can't afford it.
I hate stores that don't post prices.
I like Whole Foods. I've never really lived around one, so anytime they were out somewhere, and if we're going traveling, I know that they have like a hot bar, and they have like food that's kind of pre-made. And so we'll go in there and use it as like a restaurant, and you can get those little cardboard kind of to-go boxes, and we'll get one for each kid. Instead of getting like the mac and cheese from wherever, they have grapes and carrots and macaroni and cheese, and I can get a little bit of everything that I know they like in their own little box. And I can box it up, and there's their lunch. And I always really liked it. I mean, yeah, I think it's pretentious, but I think for that whole half, like, I really like Whole Foods. So, good for them. I wonder if they're going to give some of that money back to their homegrown like supply chain for making them who they were, they'll pay some back, or just go buy a couple islands somewhere.
Josh, you ready to talk about what you're geeking out about? I don't remember.
I did.
Okay.
I did. Mark hasn't seen Wonder Woman yet. We were talking about Wonder Woman.
Yeah. I'm gonna try and find
That's
a
right.
bootleg.
When you
I'm
get to
gonna
it.
try and find a bootleg.
Well, I mean, I think we've talked about this before. Is that next week there's going to be another one, and then there's going to be another one, and then
And Spider-Man,
Like-
and yeah.
we have
we're
to
gonna
decide
assume
on.
that. No, I think we could assume that most of our audience doesn't get to see movies right when they come out either. So I think there might be some value still in revisiting some of those.
That is true, because somebody made a comment. I think it was Ross Carroll that Doctor Strange came out on Netflix, so they could finally listen to our Doctor Strange episode.
Yeah, Rosado.
It's like, good God, that was a minute ago.
All right, so we would love to hear from all of you. Please visit our website, makeitgeeks.com. Go ahead and check out the contact page. Send us a question, suggestions for the show, anything that you want. And we do read all those emails and look forward to getting all of them. And you might just hear your suggestion or question on the show. And be sure to check out the homepage where you can find all of our past episodes, including all of our past special guests. We might have a couple new ones coming up in the next couple episodes, hopefully. It's been a while. And check it out. We look forward to hearing from all of you.
And you can find all our social medias at Instagram at Making Geeks Podcast. You can find us on Twitter at Making Geeks and on Facebook at Making Geeks.
And we'd like to thank our wonderful patrons at patreon.com/makinggeeks, and especially our top patron, Mr. Seth Williams. Thank you so much for your support. If you'd like to help out the show and throw $1 in the bucket, so to speak, and help keep the lights on and things going, and help improve and help us grow as a podcast, improve the quality of the show, let us do things we can't normally do, we would definitely appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
You can find this is our shameless plug portion of the show, I suppose. But you can find all our own individual bodies of work at Asylum Designs on Instagram, Twitter, and Thingiverse, at geekbuilders.net, at geeksmithing.com, and thepiworkshop.com. And so we thank everybody for hanging out with us. We really love responding to things that we read and we think are interesting. We hope that this can start a conversation or continue that conversation. So let us know. Hit us up. And we hope you have an amazing week. We'll see you next Saturday.
Bicycle.
Yeah, bicycle. Yeah.
Yeah. You don't have a bicycle?
I do. I have to ride it to work every day.
bicycle.
It rained on every single day.
Have a good evening, folks.